The Monday Mornings podcast is presented by Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, continuous banking since 1872. Switch today and visit smb-t.com. Welcome inside to the Monday Mornings podcast. I'm Andy Hawley alongside my co-host Jennifer Scanlon, and today we welcome into the podcast studio, thanks to Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, we have with us current host of Switch, actor and entertainer and performer, Jeff Hephner. Jeff, how are you?
I'm excellent, and I'm getting better, but
Thank you for being here.
of course, I love it. I love the whole thing. You know, I got to sit down with you and your dad on the live show, and now here I am in the podcast.
Yeah, I told you this was coming, and it's here.
Listen,
So,
you guys have a habit of that, right? You guys have a habit of saying things and they actually happen.
I didn't tell Jeff there was no air conditioning in here.
Yep, superstar. You're in the hot seat.
Listen, this is where I belong. I wore linen. You know, I was like, at the end of summer, I was like, I wore linen. I should be fine.
Perfect September look. I'm a little starstruck over here.
I knew this was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I absolutely knew.
I feel like I've said fewer words than I've ever said in my life.
That's amazing.
Just taken aback.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Jeff. Jeff, you're from Sand Creek, also known as Sand Creek.
Yes, we can call it
Small town from Lenawee County, I believe.
Yep.
Tell us what life was like in Sand Creek growing up. I know you were an athlete.
Yeah, and kind of everybody was. It was a very small school. There's not much else to do.
Yeah.
Keep you out of trouble. You know, it's a map dot. It's a four-way stop. It's all of the cliches.
You blink and you miss it.
Yeah, all of those things. And at the same time, one of those places, you know, that when you listen to a good country song, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like one of the reasons I've wandered the world a little bit with my career and my life. And it's like one of the reasons I wanted to come back home. You know, because you have this idea of where you come from, and it sticks. You know, and Sand Creek is a place that sticks. It's just it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's a little hard to move back all the way because I have to get to the airport too. But no, you know, I mean, it was typical small town. I think I graduated with 48 people.
Oh, no.
We had our 30-year reunion.
I was going to ask, have you ever been to a class reunion, and what is that like for you?
Well, it was my first one. I've never, and one of the girls that I graduated with, her and her husband owned the bowling alley in Adrian. So, of course, that's where you meet.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
That's where all the magic happens, at the bowling alley. And
In the stadium.
it's still there,
Yeah,
by the way,
yeah.
which is magical. That's a whole nother discussion. But, no, I think there was maybe 12 of us there.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah.
That was my next question.
Yeah, I don't know where everybody else was. And I had my daughter was in a place, so I could only stay for like half an hour. I got to see a ton. Oh, my gosh. Luckily, right before I went, I had found this piece of paper. My mom had me get some boxes out of storage to throw them out. I found this folded up piece of paper, and it was a contract. That my friend Doug Vogel and I had made up our senior year of high school, that if one of us didn't become a rodeo cowboy, we owed the other one $100.
Oh, my God.
I wish I'd have brought it in here. It's ridiculous. And so, as luck would have it, Doug showed up to the reunion. And I'm like, Doug, listen, I think I'm the closest one out of two of us to rodeo cowboy.
Okay.
I think you owe me $100. I mean, of course, we laughed for 20 minutes, but it's like, it was so funny because I don't remember doing it. And where did we even come up with the idea? I'm like, let's be rodeo cowboys.
That was the goal.
That was it.
Yeah.
Well, you knew you wanted to be front and center.
Clearly.
You knew you wanted to entertain.
Yes. And there was a cute girl down the road whose dad trained bulls for
okay.
small town rodeo.
Check. Now we
Yes.
understand the
There's the story.
Yes.
Did she come to the reunion?
She was not there.
No.
Because she probably would have been embarrassed, as we should have been, but we weren't. But it was a joy just to have that moment. You know, it's something I hadn't even thought of in 30 years, quite literally. And, you know, to catch up with that group. And, you know, it's weird because I think from afar, they've seen me do, you know, some stuff. They keep up. And I don't get around much.
Yeah.
So it was nice to just kind of hear them all make fun of me. Like all this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
You're just Jeff to them.
oh gosh, yeah. And it's funny to hear too. Some of you are like, oh, you know what? We kind of knew it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I thought you'd do something like that. You know, you ran your mouth all the time. It's like, it makes sense. Like it made sense enough. Because sometimes to me, I'm like, what am I doing?
Right.
This doesn't make any sense. And then you see your past, and you're like, oh yeah, they knew me, as a moron. And they're like, of course you should just do that professionally.
Yeah, the teacher that might have wrote talks too much in class had it spot on, didn't she?
She did. She did. And she would often remove me from the class. I have heard from a few teachers from the past, and they'll find you like on social media.
Yeah.
And you'll hear those stories like you were not even in the class half the time because you were off. And they would give me like chores too, like just to leave. Okay. Don't collect attendance for the classrooms. Just like shut out of here. And my son's the same way. He's just won't stop talking.
So how do you get from seeing Crick to Hollywood and beyond?
I tell this story a lot. It's weird. When I was 12, I went to some, somebody was giving a symposium on sports, and the guy kept saying, he goes, I'm going to give you the secret to success. I'm going to give you, and it's coming. I'm set. At the end, he goes, and he did. He said, he goes, you will become what you think about the most. And a day came when I was, done with college, in more ways than one. And that was the thing I had only been thinking about for, all through high school, all through college. I'm like, there's this thing I want to be, and this thing I want to experience, this life I want to have. That's what I was thinking about the most. That's what that guy's meant. Let's go.
Yeah.
So what was it you were thinking about in particular? Was there were you thinking about film? Were you thinking about TV series? Were you thinking about just performing?
I wish I was thinking, one, a little more critically and maybe a little more deeply. I didn't want to be forgotten. I didn't want to be erased. I didn't want to go away. I didn't want to have been here the whole time and not had any proof or had anything, right? In high school, I had the few people that I grew up with and were close to died young. And that really, really stuck with me. I was like, you know what? If that's me today, I got to do something, right? And without, the wisdom you gain, you're like, that's what it is. I'll be on TV. They'll never, you can go back to this episode and blah, 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 and so like I wasn't thinking all the way through. It's just like, that's the thing. I was like, okay, I want to make sure I was here. It could have been writer. It could have been probably the easiest path for me was like, well, Ashton Kutcher's on TV. Well, that guy's on TV. I can be literally, he's probably a very brilliant man. But that was a similar thought, right? And so there was just this need to like, okay, I've got a very finite amount of time. There's this understanding without the wisdom that goes with some of that thought to go, okay, I want to do something. And that's what it was. I think I would make a different decision today. I really love what I get to do. I love my career, but I mean, I've chosen to live in Michigan for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't live in New York anymore. I spend as little time in LA as I can. And it's just, it's still about living this it's my own life, right? I try not to follow all of the rules. Got to follow some. But not all of them. And just kind of do that thing that makes me feel like I'm getting better.
Okay.
So you were in your early 20s when you first got. So where do you get the courage or the confidence, right? I mean,
where do you even start?
Confidence. Right. How do you get that confidence?
I had none. I had too much, but the wrong kind.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You're like that 23-year-old guy confidence. It's like
class of 48, the big standout of 48 students, the superstar.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And 48 too. It wasn't like 400. It's like 48, your odds are a little better of being that kid. And granted, I had some really smart, funny kids I grew up with. It was just, I had this need to do something, right? And not knowing what that was, and not knowing where to start either. I had played basketball all through college. My basketball days were over. And I was like, wow, my mom had a condo in Florida. And I remember being down there and going to a play. And there's these little playhouses, little independent theaters. I think there was 3 of them near Jacksonville, Florida. And they do these plays for all these little blue hair theater, we called it. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go down there and I'm going to start doing plays. Free place to live. Well, it wasn't free for very long. She gave me 3 months. And then I had to start paying rent, which was a bummer. But I was like, okay, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to just do plays. Nobody knows I'm that, that kid from wherever who knows nothing, clean slate. And I did. I just showed up, and no guy shows up to those plays for the auditions.
I'm thinking former college basketball
Yeah.
athlete.
Nobody that
in
looks
his
like that.
mom's condo in Florida.
This lady, I'm shame on me for not remembering her name. She was an old New York theater actor from like the 50s, and she's this old battle axe of a lady, and she ran this theater like a New York theater. And she saw me come in, and she's like, I was in every play for 9 months.
Oh, that's hilarious.
They were just rolling plays out. Like, they do an original from a local, like some lady who wanted to write a play, we'll put it up. I was in everything.
She must have been one of the main people that gave you confidence then.
Totally.
Yeah.
And she made me take classes. She told me, she's like, okay, and she gave me the first hints of any training that I would, like, oh, wait, you can't just stand there and be cool.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
No, there's a method to this madness. And she was hardcore about all of it and very passionate. And like I said, I was the only guy who walked in, and like, I mean, and of age, right? It's like, so I was in every single play, and I fell in love with it. I got very confident very quickly, as you do when you're young. And I was like, okay, I'm sticking with this. And then all of a sudden a movie came to town. I mean, you know how things happen.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, there's a movie called Tigerland, Vietnam War movie, directed by Joel Schumacher. They had this open casting call, and I didn't get any of the little one-liner parts or whatever. And so they asked me to be the stand-in for the actor. I didn't even know what that is. That's the jerk who stands in front of the cameras while they set the lights up, while the actors are on their trailers. Yeah,
I've done that here before.
Yes. And they paid me for it. And but what happened is, I haven't stopped talking since we got here. This is who I am. I can shut up.
I love it.
Talking to strangers, and you get to know Joel Schumacher, right? You get to know Glenn Trotner, who's the first AD, and then the producers that roll through, and then the stars. And the star happened to be this kid, Colin Farrell, who went on to do a couple of things. So I get really close proximity with everybody, become a bit of a social coordinator for them while they're in Florida.
Nice.
We had a good time. And
was Colin smoking cigarettes back then?
well, the whole movie's Vietnam.
Like it was
everybody, like it was just, and then on camera they'd smoke the fake cigarettes. And I didn't smoke, and I'm always around. It's like you could either eyes red, the old days.
Sure.
But it was an amazing time. I walked up to Joel Schumacher at the end of it. I'm like, okay, what do I do? I'm gonna go do this.
Yeah.
And he looks at me. And he's a big, tall guy. He's like 6'6", and long gray hair. Kind of looked homeless. And he's a great guy though. He just goes, "Oh, Jeff." He goes, "Whatever you do not go to Los Angeles. Do not. They will eat you for breakfast."
Oh.
I'm like, I don't really know what that means, but I'll take your word for it. Guy standing next to him goes, "I'm going to go do Joel's next movie. We're gone for 9 months. You can have my place in New York. Just feed my cat."
Unreal.
I'm not joking. 2, maybe 3 days later, I took my pickup truck that I had. I drove it back to Sand Creek, hopped on a train here in Jackson, and was in New York City. Had never been there.
Wow.
Nuts.
Insane. And show up, and this guy, because it was a time crunch. They were leaving in another week. And so he's like, hands me the keys, pats me on the back. Good luck. Here I am in New York City going, well, what now?
So you probably went and got a newspaper or something.
Oh, no, I wasn't even that smart. I wouldn't even have known. I mean, this is like there's really not a lot of internet stuff. I had absolutely no, I don't think for the first 3 days I went out at night.
Oh, yeah.
Because I would say,
Intimidating.
You're from St. Creek.
Yeah.
Nothing good happens after
nothing.
midnight.
No.
You're such a good
imagine that?
storyteller. I can see it in my mind's eye.
Can you imagine that?
Right?
Finish college, go to live with your mom's condo, all of a sudden find a gal that loves your work, and you're in every single play, and then you're in a movie, and then you're in New York City. So how do you break in to the big scene?
Well, luckily in Tigerland, they gave me one line in the movie as kind of like a pat on the back on the last day to get you in the union. You get what is called this Taft-Hartley waiver. So now I'm in the union because I got to say Sergeant Thomas is kicking our ass.
Oh, I was just going to say, what was the...
That was like,
Okay.
doesn't make the movie though.
Oh, shut up.
Yes. This has happened to me twice, by the way. Another
well,
one.
I don't think I could recover from that.
It's brutal. It's brutal.
And you
The other
don't know
one-
until you're watching it, right?
One was made in Manhattan. I had 4 scenes with Jennifer Lopez. I'd spent a year telling everybody in Sand Creek, "Oh yeah, I'm in this movie with Jennifer Lopez," and then beep beep beep, all gone except the credit. I'm Harold, the room service waiter.
I would have lost my mind.
Devastating.
You know what?
I'm gonna look at that movie differently now.
I know.
Please do.
Yeah. I'm never watching it again.
You know what? The director is this guy, Wayne Wang. He's a beautiful man. He's really cool. And I was a PA on that job. And I'll back up to how to fill in this gap. I was a PA on that job. And I was let go from that particular job because me and one of the stars of the movie didn't get along. And my job was to make sure he had everything he needed.
Oh.
We weren't going to do well.
No.
We just weren't going to do well. And so they fired me. But they called me a week later and go, do you want to be in the movie? And they're like, it was almost like a stick to the...
And that's the guy must have really been an asshole.
We'll save that for another podcast. But it was great. You know what I mean?
I'm trying to investigate the actor.
Kind of, you'll find out.
Figure it out.
Yeah. But so, you know, I had showed up in New York and I've got this SAG waiver and I was like, okay, let's go. But everybody I knew was gone.
Yeah.
They, like the guys from the movie that go, hey, we live in New York. They all left to go do the next movie. I got this guy's cat. His cat's name was Hudson. I could feed the cat. And that's it. I mean, I had slung a few beers at some bars. So I went up to Midtown, somehow got a bartending job at like the hottest Irish bar, a block from Riverdance at the Gershwin Theater. So every single night, everybody'd see Irish step dancing and they went straight to the Irish bar. I was the jerk bartender there. And
he knew what he was doing a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
It fit. But I started bartending. It's such a blur sometimes. You've got this bravado of ignorance, right? That you're, why do you do it? I lived on 19th Street, on 21st Street. I'd see this line every single day outside of this marketing office, and it was casting calls for commercials.
Oh,
I got in line, stood in line. I had headshots. I didn't know a soul. I just got in line. I'd wait. And I'd get in there, and you have to back in the old days, you hand up a headshot with your resume, reading for the roll-up, and you sign in, all the stuff. And who's your agent? None of that. And this lady, her name was Jody Collins, this casting director. I did it 3 or 4 days in a row. She's like, what are you doing? Like, she's like, oh, you're the guy off the turnip wagon. Like,
oh, yeah.
Near from she knew St. Crick before St. Crick. And she's like, okay. She goes, do you have any money? I'm like, I don't have any money. She's like, okay, you're going to come to my my auditioning class. I teach a class. She goes, it's $500. I'm spotting you, the first one.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. I showed up, started going to her auditioning class, and I would just do dumb stuff. And she introduced me to a manager, and the manager goes, okay, you have no idea what you're doing, but this town is full of film students. They have to make thesis films.
Oh.
They need actors for thesis films.
Nice.
Nobody wants to do a student film, right? I did 18.
Oh, wow.
I did them all. Same as like the plays in Florida. It's like, what do I care?
Yeah.
I'm carrying that camera and I'm walking and saying, hitting that mark. I'm whatever you need me to do. I have no clue. And it just became this wash and repeat of that. It was the ignorance of it all. I think if I'd have gone to acting school, would have been different. I tell people, they're like, what should my kid do? Should they go to acting school? Yeah, because they're going to go to school with a bunch of people who are going to work in the business. They're going to know somebody.
Good.
They're not going to do this stuff, right? And here I was, 24 at the time. 24 is old in that business, right? To get started.
With no connections.
Yeah, with no anything.
Could you do that now with no connections at 24?
I'm sure there's a kid out there. There's some girl out there who's like, I got it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're going to do it. I couldn't at all because I could still stumble in front of people. These poor kids now, they have to do everything on tape.
Sure.
You know, if you're going to read for something, you make a tape. They don't know. If they don't know you, they don't know you.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how they get started. They get plucked from these schools. Great. But if there's a kid who's not in there, I don't know how they find you. But then on the flip of that, these kids make these YouTube videos. They do these outlandish things. They don't need the other world. So
That's true.
They've created this whole, there's people making TV shows and in Jackson, they're doing these incredible shows just on their own with no one to tell them they can't. And so there's that to explore. I feel typical Gen X guy. I'm kind of stuck in the middle of it. Like I missed this part. I was a little late to that part. And I'm like, where am I? You know, but the experience unto itself is still singular and unique and, wild. And it's exactly what I wanted, right? I didn't want to go and realize I had this finite time on earth. I didn't want to not do something. And here, if I get hit outside, I did something.
Once you start getting some of these roles, though, and people are recognizing you and your family's proud of you and things like that, how does your life change?
Yeah. It didn't at all. It's funny because I think that it never has sunk in the way that you traditionally would think it would sink in.
Okay.
Right? The goal for me is like, I want to work. I want to be a working actor. But then when I'm working and I'm done, I'm like, I don't want to work. I want to be home. I've got 3 kids. I got a wife. I live here.
Yeah.
Like the idea of leaving this summer to go to work anywhere it's almost, I don't want to. Right? It's like, you want to work to a point where you can say, I'm good. I'm going to the lake this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then there's days, like I want it. And so I'm this obviously schizophrenic about it. But it just, for me, what changed was this need for self-improvement, right? But to constantly go, okay, if I can do that in this environment, just under these circumstances, I just want to get better at life, right? I want to, the art of living becomes something very valuable to me. And so I changed in ways where you would hope, right? You grow up, you learn, you create your own values, you create things that are important to you. You start to value things differently. I didn't value the traditional on paper success of what this industry gives us, right? Sure, there's some financial things that go with it, which are great. But some of that other stuff is quite frankly terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's like you get really close to some of these things, and then they happen to friends of yours. It's really scary, and I don't want any part of it. You know what I mean? It's just like, but then you meet those people that want it.
Yeah.
They're even scarier.
Okay, yeah.
Oh my goodness, what hole are you trying to fill? It's not going to happen for you. And so I don't know. I've changed as a person. I hope I'm getting closer all the time to becoming the man that I wanted. I never had a mentor step in for me, and I'd like to be that for others. And I love talking to people just getting started. I talked to a kid a couple months ago. I just got a text from him 2-3 days ago. He got a job for marketing, but they make, short films and commercials, and like he's going to be behind a camera doing what he wants to do.
Nice.
He was taking the traditional route in LA. He was working in agencies and working for producers. And I'm like, and he didn't morally connect with that. And he wanted somebody to talk to that's like, okay, I want to be in film, but I don't want to be in that.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't have to be. There's a ton of people, and there's a big bad world out there, and you can pick your path. And he found something, and he's lit up. I'm so excited for him. And then I looked at where he's working. I'm like, you know what? He's surrounded himself with some good people,
Nice.
Good foundation for what they're doing. It's in the middle of, it's not on the coasts. It's in a place where they're going to be able to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And it's just rewarding. I want to be that mentor that didn't step in for me, because there's this trail of experience that I have of just, why did you do, what are you thinking? Like, why did you do that? It's like, I'd still be on Chicago Fire right now if I didn't take this opportunity to do this show called Agent X. And it was a huge risk, but I got to be the action hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got to be like Sharon Stone's private super. And everybody in the world goes, that's the dumbest business decision you could make. And I sat in Terminal K or in O'Hare when I had to go fly out to LA, and I'm like, I shouldn't do this. I should take this job and just be on this show because it's going to go forever and ever and ever. It's a Dick Wolf show. People's grandkids go to, survive off these shows. And I'm like, nah, I'm going to go do this other thing. And it was whatever. It ran 10 episodes on TNT, and then it did well. And then the head of the network quits, and then they're like, they cancel everything. You're like,
Oh, God.
okay, well, I guess that's over. But it's not, but it was more about a decision about, it's not going for the traditional like grab it kind of a thing. Like I didn't need that. I wanted that experience, and the experience I had from chasing that, spending 6 months with Sharon Stone as an action star. Come on, dude.
That does not sound.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
ridiculous.
Do you get starstruck?
I do. Yeah, I do. Not with her, because she's a riot. Like she's a straight up riot. She's very bawdy, and she erased that immediately, right? She's a very confident woman. So you're like, this is cool. She's great. But no, there's some. I was on a show that was nominated for a Golden Globe, so we got to go, right?
What show?
Boss.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And we were nominated for Best Series. And then Kelsey Grammer was Best Actor. He won it. So it was cool.
Wow.
I know when he won, I'm like sitting next to him and I'm like screaming like a moron. But I saw Harrison Ford.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, man, I got to say hi. I got to say hi. I got to go.
Yeah.
He literally said this. Every part of his being says, don't say hi.
Mess with me.
Do not talk to me. Please go away. Yeah. Beast. Mr. Ford. Big fan. Shut up. You know, like, thanks, sir. Yeah, thanks. And it was literally my wife's behind me. She's dying laughing. She's like, don't do it. I'm not doing it.
You have to.
You have to. And then, you know, it was fine. It was as humiliating as you expect it to be. But at this point, I don't care. I mean, same party. One of the first jobs. You care if I ramble?
No, please.
So I had that SAG card in New York, right? I'm bartending. And there's a TV show called Oz.
Just a little TV show called Oz. At a little now.
Awesome show. The people from like had gone to the movies. They're back. I'm a year or two in now. And they call me. They're like, hey, the stunt guy didn't show for Oz. You got your SAG card. Do you want to be a stunt guy? Yeah.
Why not?
Let's do that. Hey, boss, can I go? Boss is like, yeah. He's a big Irish guy. Yeah, get go. Have a blast. This is great. Can't wait to see it. I didn't know what a stunt guy did, really, until then.
But he is still here.
Barely. Steve Buscemi's the director. Remember this guy?
Oh, yeah.
It's effing great. And there's this huge fight scene in the prison. And there's this blood gag with an air compressor. So somebody's going to get their throat slit. Blood's going to blow up everywhere. I'm the security CO guy that goes to break up the fight, but you kind of lose them in the mush. And I'm there to protect the actor so nobody falls on top
Okay.
of
Okay.
Kirk Acevedo was there. And he's just looking at me, goes, dude, he goes, I'm all yours. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I had no elbow pads, knee pads, nothing. And I'm too afraid to tell anybody I didn't know what I'm doing. So go for it. Right? So they call action. I didn't realize or pay attention to, I'm not supposed to come in for like 30 seconds. Action, I come running down the stairs with my baton in my hand and like, Steve, and the gag goes off, the blood, and the whole thing's got to reset. It's an hour cleanup.
Oh, no.
Steve Buscemi screaming, who in the is this idiot? Who is this clown? Screaming. I'm like blue and red. I'm every other color. They're like, so they, yell at me for the hour cleanup. And then I come and I literally let myself get just beaten up for the rest of the day. Like just bleeding out both elbows. And the stunt coordinator comes up to me. He goes, dude, nice. You could do this. You want to be a stunt guy? I look at him, no way.
Yeah.
There's no way.
One time.
You guys are animals. His name was Blaze, too. He only had one name. I was not making this up. Because he goes, when I met him, it's like, he goes, I go, what's your name? And he goes, Blaze.
Thank you.
Sure. Of course. He was a monster. He was terrifying to be around. And so I'm just beat up. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be a stunt man, ever. Cut to the Golden Globes. I've told this story for years, right? It's like one of the first things I've ever done. And, it's ridiculous. I'm stuck in a line with Steve Buscemi.
Oh, no way.
I need to tell him the story.
Yeah.
I tell him the whole story, longer version than I just told you, just milking it. We've been at the Golden Globes all night, milking it.
Yeah, you get to cocktail at the Golden Globes.
They give him away. And I'm telling him the story, and he's looking at me the whole time. He's trapped. He can't get away from me. He's very tall. He's kind of growling at me. I go, like at the end, you're like, what do you think of that? And he's like, so now you just want my time? No, you want my time now? And I'm throwing up on myself.
Oh my God.
Oh no, man, I just thought, and he starts laughing.
Gotcha.
Oh, he starts dying. He pats me on the back. He goes, however you got here, you must have made it, kid. I'm happy for you. And he walks away. But for 10 seconds, I thought he was going to stab me. I thought it was like I just spent 20 minutes telling him my life story. He just, with the look, he's like, oh, my time.
Oh my God. So you went to the Golden Globes. Just before you told that story, I was going to ask, when was your aha moment? Like, okay, I am a professional working actor. This is what I'm doing and what I'm going to continue to do.
You know what? This is humiliating. I'll say it. I did not feel that. And most people in the business will tell you, you're not an actor until you get fired.
Okay.
Yeah. And I had gotten hired to be the lead in a pilot for NBC. And I got fired after the table read.
So
there's so much gossip in there that I would love to talk about. I'm not gonna. Like the people were like, oh my God, what a shit show. You know what I mean?
We're going to need like 5 minutes off air before you leave.
I'm sure it was just one executive producer who didn't like you or something.
You know what? It's an alchemy when you're putting a cast together, right?
Sure.
You have to have your two leads want to be leads together. And I didn't have the vote of confidence from the other person. So, or she just didn't want me there.
Sure.
So I was out. She was a big star. So I was gone. Literally had to go to a funeral that morning. My brother picks me up. He picks me up. It was shooting in Chicago. My brother's driving through Chicago. He picks me up. He's like, how's it going? I'm like, well, not going. And we go to a funeral in Kalamazoo.
Oh.
And everybody in my family's like, and it had made big news. Like, it was in the papers. Like, this guy's going to be the star of this new big pilot for NBC.
Oh, no.
Nah, you guys, we don't need to talk about that. Grandma's dead, right? So we need something good to talk about. There's nothing good to talk about for me. I got nothing. Let's just think about Grandma today. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. But it's the moment I was like, you know what? And then 2 weeks later, I got Boss, which has been one of the most critically successful roles of my life.
Yeah.
And you go through that section of time because I went home. I actually, where was I? I was in New York. So I went back and I licked the wounds. I flew to LA for a meeting. It happened to be for the show Boss with Gus Van Sant. And they're all looking at me and go, why'd they fire you? I'm like, it's fucking idiots. Sorry, no, I wasn't going to say anything. And he laughs. And we, high five. And 2 weeks later, that show also shot in Chicago. I was back in Chicago.
Wow.
It was about a month, I guess, because the people who had done the pilot, the crew, was on the crew of this. And like, am I seeing a ghost? What are you doing here? I'm like, I don't even know. I'm just going with it.
How do you dust yourself off after that? Because, I think you lose a deal or something like that. Something like that, big role, NBC,
Mass profile.
How do you act like that doesn't bother you?
It does. No, you don't. You don't. Like, literally, I remember walking down the halls and people come out of the offices, and it was. But I had 2 kids and 1 on the way, and you're like, well,
I'm good there.
What do I got to do?
Yep.
Right? And it just literally, you become bulletproof. It's like I always tell new dads, I'm like, beware the happy father. You're indestructible. They can't get you now because you have a reason. You know what I mean? And that was the most humiliating thing. I mean, at this point, you can't get me. You can't. It's like, can't humiliate me in any way, shape, or form. It's just like, you just go on. Like, there's another reason. They're like, and I remember like, I'm good at this. That didn't work because they're crazy. And I can't stop. I can't go be a baby. I can't go feel sorry for myself. And this is like, and it's, everybody wants your job. You guys know, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be sitting where you're sitting. And you just, like I said, beware the happy father, right? It's like, you can't break them.
So, Boss, you mentioned that, Frasier.
Kelsey Grammer. Yes.
Was on that and won.
Yeah.
For that. Do you think that was kind of your stepping stone to what was coming next, or something to strive for?
No, actually, it was a great lesson to watch somebody who's really the lead of a show.
Oh.
And he's John Wayne. I mean, he's within 3 feet of him. You're in the circle of charisma. Like, it's real.
Yeah.
And then to watch him, like, I was part of, you campaign for these awards.
Mm-hmm.
I was there. Like, at the dais, when they're asking questions, you look at it's like, there are some people who are born for it. He's won 7 or 8 Emmys for a reason.
Yep.
He's insanely talented. He is the lead. He is, like I said, John Wayne. I'm not. You know what I mean? I get people trying to pin you in that. Like, I did get to be the action hero and stuff, but I was happy Sharon was there. You know what I mean? Those things don't. I learned watching them. Like, I don't want any of that. I just don't. I love being a part of the story. I love being involved. I love the family atmosphere of a traveling circus.
Yeah.
But when it comes to just like seeing what he did, it was more eye-opening of like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm like, that's a whole level of disappearing act I don't want. I don't. And it was really eye-opening in that sense. I'm like, I'm good over here. I like it.
Did you ever have a, screw this, I need a 9 to 5. I can't do this anymore.
All the time. I mean, there's so many times, especially in the beginning, you're like, it's been 10 months.
And then what would that 9 to 5 be?
Well, when I was young, it was firefighter.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I was like, I could. In New York, too, I took the test, I think, twice. You know, it's like, you get on the list. It's like, well, I'll do this. Coach, you know, I love talking. I love mentoring kids. I like talking about stuff. I love what coaches can do for kids. I had an amazing coach, Charlie Reisner, in high school. And he made you believe that you were good at something and it was like,
What a gift.
and he told me, like, I was a sophomore. He's like, you're going to be right here and you're going to hit this shot. You're going to score 10 points a game. We're going to the state championship. All of it happened.
Oh my
All
gosh.
of it. And you like, it's one of those guys. It's like, I wish my kids would get a coach like that. Like, they're so rare. He was such a gift to me. And it's like, he made me believe, like, I don't walk around from Sand Creek thinking I can be Agent X or, Clark on Chicago Fire if there's not somebody who's already told me I can do anything. And he was that guy.
Yeah.
And I'd like to be that guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Those are more important jobs to me than
I think you are that guy.
I was going to say,
for sure.
you're being that guy right now.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
You're being that guy for our listeners and for us. So.
Oh.
Southern Michigan Bank and Trust provides the perfect mix of banking technology and local customer service. Learn more today and visit smb-t.com.
So of all the rules, which one would you go back and do again in a heartbeat if asked?
Oh, man. You know what? It's funny. There was a show that, unfortunately, no one ever got to watch. It was called Easy Money. People got to watch it, but just not many. I don't even think you can find it in a streaming situation. It was on the CW, and this company had decided to make private, independent TV outside of the network and studio, and then air them on the CW. And they were going to make money. This tells you how old it was on DVDs. There was a streaming model.
Yeah.
And so the whole model was set up to make back-end money on DVDs. It was with Laurie Metcalf. Do you guys remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She played my mom. I was the son who was in this adopted crazy family that ran a payday loan in the desert.
Oh, my
It's called
gosh.
Easy Money. You guys, this show is so good. It's so good.
We're going to find it.
Unfortunately, I loaned my CDs to somebody. He died.
Really?
The DVDs I have, like, I got a set. And that person died. He was a great guy. Just never got my DVDs down.
We'll look into this.
Yeah, would you? But they were financed by Merrill Lynch. The year was 2008.
Oh.
And so we're on, I don't know, episode 8 or 9, and in a show that's going to go for 5 years. Like, the first episode came out and the reviews were through the roof. Like, everybody absolutely loved it. They're like, this show should not be on the CW. It doesn't fit.
Oh.
Laurie Metcalf is a revelation. It was such a good show. And they lost all their money. And literally they're like, and my wife said, we're in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My wife's pregnant with my second kid. And this is coming off the last writer strike before the previous writer strike. And so we didn't work for 8 or 9 months. We got a baby on the way. I had $436.10. And I get this gig. The producers wrote me a personal check for $5,000 so I could move to Albuquerque. Broke as a joke with babies.
Oh.
And then we hit this thing and it's working. It's so good. The same writers from Northern Exposure, the ones doing the show. It's brilliant. If I can find any,
I need to see the show right now.
It is so good.
We're putting a call to action out to our listeners.
Please, just somebody can find
Easy Money. Yeah.
And it just like it was the unfinished thing, and the alchemy was so good. The cast was and the cast, like, they're all on TV now. Like, everybody works all the time, and like us together, I'm still friends with many of them, and we just all talk about, like, oh my God, that was the one.
I feel like we need a reboot.
I mean,
oh my goodness. It's funny because those producers have said that, and one of the producers was a British guy, and he's always talking every 3 or 4 years, like, we need to put the band back together and do the show. And I mean, it has a place because it was so perfect. It was a payday loan in a financial crisis.
Yeah.
Like the world needed a payday loan at this moment. And it was just so ridiculous because I was adopted, and I'm trying to figure out who my real family is. My family is this crazy people. So, like, Laurie Metcalf has this huge Peggy Bundy wig, and she's over the top, and I'm this, I'm kind of the quiet guy trying to figure out my place in the world. And my my dad was this guy, Nick Searcy, who was this crazy actor who had a toupee. It was like, everybody was insane. Judge Reinhold was the private detective I would hire to do stuff, and we would only meet in this strip club. And always in the background, the stripper had a knee brace. Whoever was dancing had to have it.
Sounds like a nice place.
Yeah, classy joke. He was a trip. Funny enough, he was telling me back then, this was in '08, about the Beverly Hills Cop that just came out.
Oh, no kidding.
Like I'm like, I didn't believe a word he said.
So that was being talked about back then.
He would tell me, and he had like cocktail notes. I'm like, this is what I told Eddie. This is what we're gonna do, Eddie. It's like, and I'm like,
Oh my
I haven't seen the movie yet. I'm like, any of those ideas to do? But like, that thing was a dream back then.
Yeah.
Probably more for Judge than Eddie. But yeah, he was an interesting character. But that show I would jump in and do today.
Okay.
It was amazing. It was fantastic.
Let's see what we can do.
I would love to see that. Let's talk about what you're doing today. Everyone listening wants to be a guest on a game show, I think, at least some point in their life. You get to be the host of a game show.
Yeah.
Probably something you never thought you were going to do. I know you watched a lot of them growing up. What's it like hosting a game show, a weeknight game show? And you can see Switch 5 o'clock on the Game Show Network.
That's right. Yeah, it's bizarre. It's truly bizarre. What's most bizarre is how comfortable it's become.
Yeah.
I'm a game show host. I know, okay, sure. And that's the story of my career, right? I've been like, okay, well, I'm an action hire. I'm a firefighter. I'm a doctor, right? Or whatever. Politicians.
Stuntman.
Briefly. And it's just, I'm at the point in my life where I understand what's important about this. And it's the important part of it is it's joyful. Like you said, almost everybody wants to be on a game show. And if you don't want to be, you do it.
Yeah.
Like there's that cranky guy out there going, I don't want to be on a game show. Do it.
Yeah.
You're going to love it. Come on, mine. And it's an absolute joy. And I know that that's rare in our business and very rare for me. In the last 10 years, I've played a lot of bad guys and a lot of scumbags. And now I get to be that guy who might give you 10 grand. You know what I mean? And or wants just you to have a great time. And I want to interact with you in your moment. It's you, whatever. And that whole experience for me has been, and it still continues, has been amazing. It's just been an absolute joy to get to be a part of it.
Are you smarter now?
No. It's funny, my kids, we watch the show, they're like, do you remember this? I'm like,
you don't know the answer.
We do 6 in a day.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And there's times when they cut to me, I can see me thinking,
Oh, my God.
and the thing is, I'll read the questions before the show. I'm supposed to, and I'll say them out loud.
Yeah.
So I don't screw up the pronunciation of words. I get up there and it's all going, and I'm so focused on them. I read those, and my whole point is to get them to do something fun.
Yeah, silly.
So that's whatever, right? If they get it, I don't care, right? Get it right. And then I don't know it anyway. And so, but I'll forget almost all of it. There's a few I won't. It's funny. I was in a meeting with somebody, and he's this executive at Warner Brothers, and he's so sick of TV, right, that he watches game shows. And he wanted to have a meeting. He goes, I've known you in your work. We don't know each other, but he goes, I didn't know you'd be a game show host. And I go, I didn't know you'd watch one.
Yeah.
And he goes, tell me, he goes, I love it. He goes, I've DVR'd all of them. And he goes, tell me about that one girl who became a lesbian after she found out she wasn't in love with Keanu Reeves.
Oh, my God.
You learn everything.
And I'm like, you know what? That's the one I remember. Because she had offered up this information on air, like, oh, I was in love with Keanu Reeves and then I wasn't and became a lesbian. I'm like,
And you're just asking them what they do for fun.
Oh, my God.
I wasn't asking anything.
She just wanted you to know.
What's your answer, right? It was just like, and then the look on my face, I'm like, oh, well, and I go, how do you think he feels about that?
Yeah.
What do you do?
You're kind of tasked with, making sure that these 5 guests are entertainers, right?
Yes.
You have to kind of
bring out
prime
the
them up
best.
a little bit. They've never been on TV before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a lot of work.
Oh, I had no idea. And with Switch, you got to move people.
Yes.
Wheel of Fortune.
You have to know the rules of the game.
Yeah. Which, and so it's funny. And they had told me when I started how many hosts don't know. Like there's hosts, like they'll get some stand-up comedians who are just there to be comedians. So like, I don't need to know anything. And they don't even know the rules of the game. And there's so many stops and starts. And this, you've got to know where everybody goes and how they move. And then you've got to turn them into entertainment. Some are easy to turn it, like, this is their moment. Go get it.
Yeah.
And then some are like, oh, you don't want to be. You're like they get so tight and nervous. And that's playful too. And it's also sweet and endearing because most of us would be that way, right? I mean, like, I'm on a kid. Like, this is weird, right? I'm on a game show. And so navigating that has been fascinating. I love people, right? And I love how we all are just exactly the same. And we all act like we're not. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're all out here faking it. It's everyone, like everybody's exactly the same. And when you can create denominators like a game show, you get those moments. And then I empathize, I love them. And, and not, once, one guy was unlikable, but I've done 175 episodes and only one's been super unlikable. And that's just him.
Your
personality.
Yeah. He was like, oh, you're nice. But other than that, everybody's just been so sweet and loving and excited to be there. And then you get grateful that you have this job. I've had this bizarre pathway. And it's funny when in situations like this and I talk about it, like, wow, that's weird how some of it all works. And you start to believe in, other things that work. And this is another one. You're like, how am I here? I'll take it. I love it. And, and then it's like Kevin Costner in Tin Cup, because you ride her till she bucks you, or you don't ride at all. And it's like how I take every gig. It's like, well, you just ride her till she bucks you.
How do you host a game show in LA when you live in Chelsea?
Yeah, you live in a guest house of somebody, on the side of a hill. You know what? It's better that way because it does take up so much time that I'm unavailable to my family at that point anyway. And so there's times where, so like I did Stretch of the Game Show. Then I went to Hungary for 4 months and did Eric, the Netflix show.
Wow.
And then I came back and did another Stretch of the Game Show. And as a result, I've decided to stay home for a while.
Sure.
Right? Because you have to find this balance of like, okay, I was gone. Emotionally, physically, all of it gone. And so now I'm here. And, living in Michigan, I have that ability.
Yeah.
If I'm living in New York, I'm like, well, see ya, dudes. We got to pay for this, And that was one of the motivators for living here. Not just the finances, but just the quality of life.
Yeah.
And so, when I'm in that, I'm gone. I disappear, and I'm not as smart as I wish I was, so I have to keep a lot of notes. I have to keep a lot of books. I have to keep a running chronography. You know what I mean? Like if I lose the chronology of, I said chronography.
You did chronography.
I like that. I like this chronology. I was mixing this. That is a whole nother podcast. But if I don't keep the chronology, I lose the characters, right? I can't just dip in and out, and if I'm to make it feel real for me, and so I disappear. And it's exhausting, and it can be very troublesome. The show I was talking about, Easy Money, when that got canceled, especially under the circumstances, I went back to New York, and it was the first time I was ever depressed. I was like, what is this? You're like, I don't know what to do. I just had my dream situation, and then it's taken away. And you realize that decompression that happens is a real thing for people, and you can get lost in there. And if you don't have the proper coping skills, which 99% of us don't, we just don't naturally have those. Our society doesn't provide those often. If you don't create those for yourself, you get lost. And you guys know all of those terrible stories about people that get lost. And it's a real thing. You bury yourself. And even in the game show, I bury myself in it. I was like, I put so much energy. They have gotten on my case a couple times, like, slow down.
Okay.
You're gonna burn. And they're right. Like towards the end, I'm sitting between commercial breaks. I'm I do burn out, but I want.
You're doing 6 a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I would be done at, it's like 14-hour days, and the sun was still up in LA most of the time when I'm going home. But I would tell them, I'd call home and I was like, hey, stay on the phone.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be able to stay awake.
Keep me awake.
And I rent this little cottage in the Hollywood Hills. This old lady, she's so lovely and so private, and she leaves me alone. But to get there is like a winding
trek.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, you got to keep me awake. And because you just get so deep into it. And but that's how I prefer to do it, right? It's like, and those ones who do it all the time and like really do great work all the time, I don't know how they balance their life emotionally. There's people I've seen succeed in our business, but not at home.
Have you seen some people and they are literally robots? They've turned into robots?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And you do, right? Because there's so many things at play when it becomes a business. There's so many things you have to do. It's like any business you're running, you've got to adhere to this protocol to keep it going. And we all know that it goes like that. whoever they are, take it immediately, right? It's like, I've been fired from a gig, or like, or shows get canceled because of financial crisis is like once in a generation. Like, you never know. So when it's happening, you got to eat it up. And I've chosen many times to be like, I'm full. We'll start over when we need to start over.
Okay.
And because the compromise you make when you just stay in it. I've had a buddy who hasn't stopped working for 10 years. We went and spent some time together this summer, our families, and he has smoked. You know what I mean? Like, and there's some distance in there between the person he wants to be and then the person he has to be.
Yeah.
And it's a lucrative balance, but or compromise, but it's not something me personally want to do. And I witness other people a lot, right? So I'm trying to I was like, I want that, I don't want that, and you can get lost if you don't know that those things that you want, right? Like, so many of us wander, like, oh, I want to be on TV, I want to be rich, I want to be famous. No, you don't. You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, some people are really good at it. Like, you see him, you're like, oh, you're supposed to be famous. You meet Colin Farrell day one, you're like, oh, that's
Super.
dude, it's ridiculous. Like, you get around people like, I just want to hang out with that dude. What are we doing? Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, they're just the coolest. And like, but there was a part of his life, I remember when it first happened for him, we were all still close from that situation. We're all like, be careful. Yeah, dude, it's scary. You show up to stuff and you're like, and he's, charismatic. Everybody wanted a piece. And you're like, what a really tight rope that you have to walk. And he has since navigated quite well. For I think there was a moment in his life, maybe. He didn't call me and tell me about it. But I think that, there's this need for me to try and do this my way.
I can kind of get a sense that it's almost like you kind of had your way in the back of your head already.
Yeah.
On how you were going to deal with the potential challenges that arose from this career that you knew nothing about.
Yeah, or what they were going to be. I think I have a natural trepidation. It's funny because I was often first to jump on a lot of things, but it was more exploratory. Like, what's that feel like when I land? Okay, I'm not doing that again. I was like, oh, that's higher, And I think that in my head, it goes back to the beginning, right? Like, you become what you think about most. I never thought about being famous. I never thought about being, a movie star. Like, I'll watch Kevin Costner all day, what I mean? But I'll be like, go get him, kid. You know what I mean? I like to watch that, but I think what I wanted to do professionally is not nearly as valuable as what I wanted to do personally. Oh. And, once I realized that at a certain age, I'm like, okay, that part is so much more important to me than the other part. The other part's really fun, but I really want the personal part. I want to keep getting better as a human being, and there's a ton of work to do.
Well, I want to thank you for the encouragement you give me every time I talk to you, because, I mean, we all need it for sure. You do need
everybody.
It. Yeah.
Everybody needs to hear feedback too. Everybody needs to know that, okay, that's working, or, that's important to me. That's valuable to me. I love, when you see somebody and you tell them, like, that meant a lot. It's like, who I want to talk to right now? Spencer Torkelson. He got sent down to Toledo, to first baseman for the Tigers.
Yes. I do know.
Lions fan.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
The guy back there.
I just dropped the name, and they're like, all of a sudden,
we all know Torkelson. We all know Torkelson.
He's talking about baseball now, but they sent him to Toledo. This guy's the first pick, and he's supposed to be the man.
Yeah.
They kicked him in the stomach, sent him to Toledo. No one wants to go to Toledo, not even for baseball, for a month or so. And he comes back and he hits like 3 home runs. Remember the first game he was back? He's got the double and a home run. And I'm like, this is my spirit animal.
Yeah.
This is my motivational speaker. And I just want to shake his hand. I want to say, dude, you know what you're doing for me? Because you're justifying everything I tell my kids.
Right. Nice.
You go down there and you buckle down. You didn't quit. You didn't cry. Maybe cried, but you didn't in front of us. And you came back to the majors. And guess what? We're 3.5 games out of the wild card because of him.
Yep.
It is insane. And I want to go up to him and pat him on the back because he even needs to hear it.
It couldn't have been easy. I mean, you've got people looking at him like he was a failure when he gets down to Toledo.
All the radio heads going like, well, he's a bust. Well, I would fix his swing. Oh, you could fix it.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Radio guys can fix swings.
Yeah, they can.
Let's talk about hosting game shows before we let you get back on the road.
Okay.
I think this is something that you're going to do for the rest of your life. What about you?
I would like to. I'm actually, one of my meetings in New York is about this tomorrow. I have found a spot that I'm super comfortable. It works for me personally. It works for my family. And, a makeup artist, when I first started Switch, she had said, she'd been doing game shows for 30 years. She's like, game show hosts are either hated or they are beloved.
Oh.
And she goes, there's just something about it. You can be in my house and do these things. And she goes, you can pick which one you want to be. And I was like, well, I like beloved. That'd be but I got right away what she meant. I'm like, oh, there's this something, when we think about Bob Barker and Sajak and Trebek, and there's like, they occupy a space in our hearts, not just our homes. And it's a lost thing too, by the way. We're losing this. It is a look back to the past. So if this is my future, let's hope they last, right? Because of streaming and because of the way we consume, nobody's hitting on YouTube for a whole game show, I don't think. So, it's a bit of a lost art, but it's this touch to home. It's like there's still things people want to. My mom's obsessed with Blue Bloods.
Oh, yeah.
So, right?
She likes Tom Selleck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Yeah. We
We always called him Gagnum PU. Because when
Got a
that's
hell of a mustache.
right, if I could only. But you know what I mean? Like there's something wholesome about that show. It's such a throwback, and you can see who loves it and who has never heard of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Game shows fit into that category. So I hope they survive, and I want to be there for as long as they do.
Yeah.
You mentioned your kids earlier, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about that balance. I mean, the self-awareness that you have is so impressive. It's in such a cool industry and local to hear about. How do you keep that balance? And I'm curious what you think your kids would say about you.
It's funny. My kids, they have it's weird because I don't talk about it much. They don't talk about it.
Okay.
But I do hear from their friends' parents that they talk about it much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they don't talk about it with me because I don't talk about it at home. And we don't think it's a big deal. Like some of our friends are very well known, and they'll see somebody like, oh, that's just Uncle, and so I don't get a real good read. Like we were in Detroit yesterday, and some girl comes running into the store. We were in the Nike store looking for Lions gear.
Oh, yeah.
And so comes running into the store, and I had done this show Ghost, where I was this jerk Detective Whitman. And she comes barreling in, let us know she knows. And my daughter's just like, wow, she likes her TV. And so they kind of keep it at a little bit of a distance, It's like,
Hey, kids are humbling, aren't they?
They are. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because they don't.
They don't think you're not as
really
cool
know
as you say.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they see how hard it is. We talk about how hard it is keeping this balance. We talk about what it's like to be gone when we're separated. So I don't think that I have anybody that wants to do this for a living. I think that they respect it. They understand. We talk a lot about story and like the value of it. We're all watching Jane the Virgin right now. You ever watch that? It's a sweet, sweet show, and it's ridiculous. It's like a telenovela, and but it captures us for an hour, a couple times a week. We all sit there together. I got teenagers. For the power that show has right now, I'm like, do you see the power of that?
Yeah.
That's giving us an hour to sit here and goof around with Rogelio. You know what I mean? And all these goofy characters. That's the value, not the money, not the fame, not the value that there's 5 of us sitting here with the dog, and we're staring at the TV, and we're giggling, and we're telling stories. We collected monarch caterpillars, and every year, and like they all had names like Rogelio, and so it becomes a part of our connection and our bond, and that's the stuff that I want to do, right? Like they understand that that's my goal. Like so, when the lady comes running into the store, going, "You were such a jerk," as Detective Whitman, I'm like, I go, "I got what I deserve, though, didn't I?" And she's like, "Yeah, you deserved everything." But it's the fun interaction, right? And so, but she has a moment now to connect to that show in a different way.
Yeah.
And I have a fondness for, I was like, oh, I got to be part of that person's life today, and there's this bond that we all need, that fabric that gets lost. And the power of stories still obviously will always hold us together. It's just sometimes, my kids, I think we talk about it as like, that's what it is. It is literally connective tissue.
That's awesome. I want to thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. I love this.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
We have to do it again.
Please.
Let's do it.
Happy to.
Yes, I just have to say, between your art of living and just knowing and showing your proof of existence were huge takeaways for me today.
I'm so glad. Thank you.
Do you remember saying them?
I do actually. Yeah, especially the art of living is something very, I'm very passionate about the idea of that. I read the Stoics very deeply, and as deeply as I can, and that's the recurring theme, right? Like that's the goal. Like there's an art to living, and I think some of that gets lost when we don't stop and think, what do we do?
Right.
Well, I appreciate those nuggets. We're going to take it with us throughout our day.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it. 50's going to look good on you, by the way.
Oh,
Happy birthday.
it's coming.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
The Monday Mornings Podcast is presented by Southern Michigan Bank and Trust, continuous banking since 1872. Switch today and visit smb-t.com. What a ridiculous guest Jeff was.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
I feel energized. I hope our listeners do. I mean, unbelievable story, and his career path and where he's at now. Unbelievable. And he's here in Michigan.
Yes.
Makes his home right here.
It's pretty cool, and I think it's okay. You learn from him, it's okay. Your story doesn't have to be conventional. What an unconventional path he took.
Yeah.
Sand Creek, high school, college athlete, but he is doing something he's always wanted to do. And I think as we continue throughout this podcast, we're going to talk about that a lot, but how many of us are really doing that?
He said something about what he was asking is, what is the proof of his existence or his life? And that's something that is going to stick with me for a long time. Like, what are we leaving behind? And he's had a lot of opportunities that have probably gone by the wayside because he's chosen his family, his heart and his soul over just economic growth and Hollywood stardom. And I respect the heck out of that. And I think I'm going to become kind of a groupie.
I think you should.
Yeah.
I could tell you were smitten a little bit.
I was a little smitten. I was
that.
starstruck.
He's awesome, but I mean, what a great person too,
Yeah.
right? He was so nice, spent some time with us before and after, and really wish Jeff continued success. He'll hopefully come back and see us again. Right now, you can catch Jeff weeknights on the Game Show Network as he hosts Switch at 5 o'clock, so check that out. Jeff is so entertaining on that show. I'd like to see you maybe try and become a guest on that show.
I was just going to say, we should fly to LA and be contestants.
Oh my
on
God.
it. Wouldn't that be so fun?
It would, until we couldn't answer the silly questions.
This is true. Yeah. But I definitely left yesterday a big fan of his as a human, and I'm really excited to explore his work more.
Yeah.
He said he plays a lot of dirt bags. We need to investigate that more.
Yeah, there's some cool roles he's played, and looking forward to following more of him. Well, that was fun. I think we're smarter, and I think we're more motivated than ever before.
Well, we want to be better every single time,
Yes.
right? And we want to leave our listeners with a little bit more and hopefully leave them better than they were. So we'll see you in number 3.
Yeah, see you in number 3. And one last piece of advice from Jeff, and really all of our guests so far, is, if it doesn't work out, you get fired or something happens, it does suck, but you just move on.
Pivot.
Gotta move on. Make sure you follow us on social media. Please subscribe to the Monday Mornings Podcast on YouTube, and we'll see you next time on the Monday Mornings Podcast.
Bye, Andy.